With all of the different sources available out there these days for news and information, and all of the myriad agendas that people have in giving that information using different psychological operations techniques to manipulate folks, a lot of people just get tired of it and they get exhausted. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. I just can't handle it anymore. I don't know what to believe. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about this, and it's Matthew 7, verses 15 through 20. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, meaning they seem innocuous. They might even seem friendly, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what they smell like. It doesn't matter who recommended them. None of that matters. Look at their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree cannot. It can only bring forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. And what happens to trees that don't bring forth good fruit? They're chopped down, cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. Now, how does that apply to discerning what is truth? Well, it's real simple. Let me ask you a question. Has Washington, D.C. brought forth good fruit? When you look at the effects of what those in Washington, D.C. have done, would you describe it as good fruit or evil fruit? That's a pretty easy question. What about those in New York? Would you want your kids growing up with New York values or Chicago values? Well, you see, it doesn't matter what anybody would tell you about Washington, D.C., or what anyone would tell you about Chicago or New York or Minneapolis or Portland or Detroit or any one of these places. You can see evil fruit. Therefore, you will not partake in it. It's just that simple. Now, what if I told you could do this on a global scale? And a lot of people have been misled about one specific topic. We're going to cover that in today's video, but real quick, I want to be diligent. I want to bring forth good fruit over at the Patreon channel, where it's $1. No man who's ever had a good orchard has ever done it for free. No man who has ever had a good and successful orchard has never not had to put a little bit into it. I have 8 fruit trees planted in my yard, 4 on one side, 4 on the other. And most of the work went into just digging the holes, because you just can't dig any old hole for a fruit tree. You've got to dig it a certain shape. You've got to loosen up the soil. There's all sorts of things you have to put down in the hole first. It has to be a certain kind of soil. And then when you put it back in, there's things you put. All sorts of different things go into creating good fruit. And you can tell whether someone has done a good or a bad job by looking at the effect. $1 per month. That's it. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. And once again, fully refundable. Now, yesterday we talked about why nobody out there should ever partake in any product made by Anheuser-Busch ever again, or until they apologize and relent and bring Bud Light back into some semblance of knowledge of who their customer base is. If they don't, then forget Anheuser-Busch. And that's a lot of different beverages, I know. But I'm not going to give Bud Light the time of day here and show the sickness that they decided they wanted to be involved in. But there was a reason they called them asylums back then, which is where a lot of these people belong, and that's just what I'm going to leave it at now. Many have come to me and said, Flora Maki, you are totally wrong about Venezuela. Well, now time has given it proof. This is not the case. Now, this whole woke agenda thing, especially the issues surrounding what's going on with Bud Light, I won't name them by name because I'm not going to give them time here. What if I told you there were places in the world that had absolutely no problem and no confusion about what a man was or what a woman was? And it's really funny. You can find a list online. You can find a list online of the most friendly countries to the woke agenda and the least friendly countries to the woke agenda. And when you start to look at those countries who are least friendly to the woke agenda, a pattern emerges. A pattern emerges that's going to shock a lot of people. Now, here's what they're not telling you. Venezuela's March oil exports rise on more supertankers and Chevron cargoes. I thought socialism was going, if Maduro stays in power, it's just a matter of time before Venezuela totally collapses, and that'll fix their little red wagon for so... Really? Venezuela starts to see some perks of renewed ties with Colombia. See, people are not participating in the Washington, D.C. sponsored sanctions anymore. And D.C. has finally relented and lifted some of them. You see in this particular article here for April 2023, it's nothing huge. At a warehouse in this Venezuelan border town, customs officials inspect tractor trailers loaded with imports from neighboring Colombia. It's rather mundane. Detergent, tobacco, crates of mayonnaise. But warehouse owner Emilio Gutierrez is thrilled. The warehouse has been shuttered for 7 years amid diplomatic disputes between U.S.-led Colombia and Venezuela that led to frequent border closures. As cargo traffic dwindled, a cash-strapped Gutierrez joined an exodus of 2.5 million Venezuelans who resettled in Colombia. You see, here's the story that they're not telling you. What about all the people that left Venezuela? Well, this is why. Washington, D.C. And now that Washington, D.C. does not control Bogota anymore, or Medellin anymore, imagine this. Colombia began mending fences of Venezuela's government border posts have reopened, and Gutierrez, who returned to San Antonio del Chichir in February, reopened his business. Another story they're not telling you about all those coming back. And how this random guy named Juan and his little band of merry idiots, their mismanagement has caused Citgo to be carved up by a judge. Long and the short of it is, they decided that they were going to use PDVSA, the state-run oil company, as their personal piggy bank. And when a judge saw this, he said, oh, okay, well, if this is the case, then if you have that money, then you can hand it over to all these creditors. Now, let's take a look at countries right now that are dumping the dollar. It's really easy to find. Brazil, Russia, and we can, of course, include Belarus, India, China, South Africa. And who else is on their side? Well, let's see. Venezuela. Who else? Oh, yep, Iran. It's kind of weird when you look at this. We can probably throw in North Korea over here. But all of a sudden, we're starting to see other countries like Mexico and Colombia now get on the same street. Nicaragua and Honduras. And, of course, Cuba. But there's a funny story out of Cuba. Cuba is starting to go woke. Wait, what, Mikey? Yep, that's right. Cuba is starting to go woke. You see, you'd think the woke agenda would be rife in all of these places. It's not. In fact, these countries are amongst the least friendly, and here's that list. And you can find it on Wiki. Now, here's the part that's going to blow your mind. Just look up the term woke friendly or Golf Alpha Yankee friendly, whatever. Go look at their list of countries and go all the way to the bottom. And you'll find something very strange. At near the bottom is Jamaica. Keep moving up the list here. And you'll find Dominica and the Dominican Republic. Keep going up. Haiti, Belarus, the Bahamas. Wait a minute. Really? These are all that Venezuela, Nicaragua. These are places in the country that in the world, pardon me, that are very much against the woke agenda. See if we can click the Bahamas there. Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica. Now, isn't this very odd? All the conservatives in this country that fear, oh, the mass invasion from South America, even Chile, is very left-wing. Bolivia, super left-wing. But they are all countries that are very much against the woke agenda, according to the woke agenda themselves. Do you see a pattern? Do you see a pattern? But it's really funny about Cuba. Like, well, Florida Monkey, where's Cuba? You ready for this? The United States is 35. Puerto Rico's tied 35th, I guess. Israel. Where is Cuba? $29. Now that should surprise a lot of people. Why would Cuba be so woke friendly? Well, you see, something's going on. Miami, Florida, is starting to have a huge influence in Havana. And it's about two cities, Miami and Havana. And this is going to be something that's going to shock a lot of people and stun a lot of people in the next probably 10 to 15 years. You're going to see Cuba come into the left's woke fold because of the money involved in the tourism. Cuba moving to develop sustainable tourism. Now, when you hear terms like sustainable tourism, what does that tell you? Cuba's becoming a very different place. You see, the farther, and this is basically the idea I'm going for here. The farther you get towards capitalism, the closer you get to woke. It's just that simple. That's because that's what the money's all about. Whatever, follow the money. Now, some people say, well, go woke, go broke. In certain circles, perhaps. It's just going to be a realigning. It's going to be a complete realignment. I wonder if it ever occurred to anybody that perhaps those over at Anheuser-Busch realized who the alcoholics really were. A lot of people, they think of alcoholic, they go, oh, the guy with the huge Yeti 150 or whatever, and all of his Bud Lights. We see there's another group of people that can drink hillbillies under the table. And they're the woke crowd. Because it's endemic. It is absolutely endemic to their society. Their society, their view of the world doesn't exist without booze. Don't think so? Look at how many of them have gone through 12-step programs, how many of the woke crowd have participated regularly on a daily basis in beverages provided by places like Anheuser-Busch. Take away the alcohol and watch what happens. And don't think this is a right or left thing. Anybody now who says anything about Venezuela that doesn't agree with the narrative out of D.C., we're AI creating misinformation. That's right. Anybody who even asked the question, was Venezuela really destroyed by socialism, or could there be involvement from Washington, D.C. in an attempt on behalf of Big Oil to get a hold of their cargoes? See, let me ask you this question right now. A lot of folks won't have an answer for it. See, the Saudis have decided to cut production, and that's jacked up oil prices. What would have happened if instead of turning Venezuela into an enemy, we kept them as an ally? And oh, by the way, when I was in the military, back in the 80s and 90s, Venezuela was our ally, and yes, they were socialist. Look it up. Venezuela, people, they spout this ridiculous piece of misinformation lie as if it's the truth when they've never looked it up for themselves. Well, when Venezuela became socialist, that's when they got broke. That is the most insanely stupid, inaccurate statement I've ever heard. Venezuela has never been capitalist. Venezuela has never not been socialist. They have been socialist from their inception as a country to now. The difference that happened when Chavez took over is he just kicked out the U.S. influence, the one that had its hand in their cookie jar. And then the U.S. turned the screws on them and cost them a bunch of money and caused the shortages and caused all of the problems and the headache and heartache. And we have proof of this now. And nobody's apologizing. Nobody's waking up. Nobody's seeing it. But imagine this: Jamaica, out of all these countries, is the least woke friendly. The Dominican, least woke friendly. Dominica, least woke friendly. The Bahamas. But Cuba stands out. Cuba stands out. Why? Real simple. Havana, Miami. You watch. This is about money. This is about woke money. Right here. And nobody's talking about it. Venezuela, very not woke friendly. You see, these folks down here don't have a problem with girls walking around in bikinis. But boy, they got a problem with the agenda. You're either a man, as you were born, with an XY chromosome, or you are a woman, born with a uterus, born to give birth, with 2 X chromosomes, female, just like the Bible says. And that's why I started with this. You will know them by their fruit. I don't care how poor Haiti is. I don't care how poor Jamaica is. You will know. You see, I don't look at wealth, worldly wealth, as a measure of whether it's godly or not, or whether it's Christian, or whether it's right. If you do, then you have a completely different definition of what I call good fruit and what you call good fruit. 2 totally different things. So, anyway, I will leave it there. But those of you who understand truly what good fruit is, join us at Patreon. $1 per month, that's it. Fully refundable for 3 months, first 90 days. Would love to have you over there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.